So welcome everyone. This series of interviews and conversations about the money paradox. We're going to talk about that later. But first, I want our guest to introduce himself. He's a great coach. I'm not going to say anything about him because I want him to speak for himself. So there you go.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on here, Marcelo. My name is Frank Kitchen. I'm known as the Mindset Master Chef. And quite simply, I just work with professional associations who want to fire up the careers and profits of their members. So quite simply, I speak on mindset, workplace culture, and leadership. And I talk about what we can do to flip our mindset so we can cook up the professional dreams we hunger for.
Awesome. I really like that. And when I first saw you online, I really liked your branding because I think it's very special, unique. And I'd like you to talk about a little bit, just real quick.
Yeah, well, my last name, people always will ask, is my last name really Kitchen? So yes, my last name is Kitchen, just like the room in the house. And when I became a speaker and a trainer and a coach, I was trying to find something that people could really understand or grasp, an analogy, and nothing better than my name. So I tell people I've turned 50 years of just jokes and comments into a business. So everything that I do is kitchen inspired. And when I'm saying kitchen inspired, the idea is I use kitchen terminology because I used to go to culinary and, I like to cook. And I use it in the terms of what are we doing to transform our professional aspirations into reality? What's the actions of the fire that we're adding to it to make it go from, hey, this is something I hunger for, to something I actually get a chance to experience?
This is amazing. I really like that. And I really like the fact that you, like you said, some people joked about your name, but then you turned that into your superpower, basically into your brand. And it was creative. It was embracing something that might have been uncomfortable in the beginning and turning that into something that's probably even attracting more people towards you. Is that so?
Yeah, it's so, because when I really start to look at it, the way our mind is developed is many times we're taught to look at the negative versus looking for the positives. So for the positives, I started to recognize my friends, my family, my network, when they were making jokes of my name, it wasn't joking to, demean me. It was actually something of, they thought it was cool. They thought it was fun. They said they wish they had that name. And they actually were doing things that were very creative to kind of pick me up. So when I decided to go full bore into this name, I'm like, hey, you know what? This is what I've been known for. And many people come to me now. It's like, oh, it must be so lucky to have a name like that. You're so memorable and it's easy to remember you. It's like, we don't know how to build our brand or go and do it. It's like, and you've got this. So for me, I'm starting to embrace it was, yeah, I ran away from this name for years, but then I recognized, as you said, this is my superpower. This is what allows me to stand out from the competition and from the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally love that. And it's like, there's this saying, turn your weakness into strength. And that's a clear example of how, and sometimes most of the times we're super critical about ourselves and what we bring with us. And sometimes we don't realize that to the world, they either don't care about that or they actually like it. And we are worried about it for no reason sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's true. Like my really good friend, we started speaking together years ago. We're still really good friends, but his father was a pastor. And one day we went into his house and we were complaining about something about work and our careers. And his father looked at us, he goes, hey, I want to share something with you. And he goes, hey, everybody, he goes, the one-eyed man is king in blind man country. And, look back at him like, what's this comment? And he goes, one-eyed man, king in blind man country. And I was like, I don't get it. And then he slowed down to explain. He goes, hey, he's like, all of you are complaining, me and his son, Roger. He's like, you're complaining about the fact that you only have vision in one eye. He goes, but the blind man is going, hey, at least you have vision. So the comparison was, we spend so much time being critical of ourselves about what we don't have. We forget about what we do. And that's the big piece. Like when I work with groups now is I tell them, is like, you know what? It's difficult being ourselves. So stop trying to be someone else and focus on being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I think this connects a lot to gratitude. And I think that a lot of people got this idea of gratitude work a little shifted, not 100%, where they could, benefit tremendously from it. And what I mean is that in my experience, for example, I've seen a lot of people saying like, hey, create a journal with all the things that you like, that are good in your life, and forget about the bad stuff, focus on the good stuff. But I think that is just, like, it's not too bad. Of course, it's better than dwelling on the dark side. I think that the best version of gratitude work is when you actually embrace everything. Like, regardless, there's no good or bad, because the bad stuff it's usually most of the times it's uncomfortable stuff, and there are different levels of uncomfortable, of course. Some things are not that great. Other things are like terrible, of course. But still, if you see it under that lens of uncomfortable, that discomfort can then become your strength again in the future, right? So if you work on it, if you embrace it, if you're grateful for that as well, sure, it's not easy, but eventually, even tragic events can lead someone to become, to rise above their ashes sometimes.
It does. I mean, it keeps you motivated. Like my father-in-law will talk about the fact of, he goes, hey, we have to have those hard times. Even when I get introduced to people, it goes, Frank is here to share his failures and successes, because you and I've talked offline, and we said, too many of the world, we try to show just all the successes. And anytime I coach or work with anyone, I go, hey, the number one question you should ask first is, hey, Marcelo, tell me about some of your failures. What did you learn from that? Because we can learn more from someone's failures or the negatives than we can the positive. So even when I work with groups, to create some type of, just continuity or connection, I explain all my failures first, because we're in this world, we're always trying to be perfect. And anytime we see somebody being perfect, we try to find the imperfections. But when we show our imperfections actually connect us more. So I believe you said that with me also. It's like when you and I are looking at people, where we try to find who we admire, it's not the ones who are perfect. It's the ones who say, okay, here's where I messed up, and here's how I made it through this, failure in my life, this road bump in my life, this, this barrier. Those are people I connect with, because I was like, oh, they understand the pain that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And this reminds me of the movie 8 Mile, Eminem, where at the battle, he's like, yeah, here's all the bad things that people say about me. Now, what else can you say about that? Like, I already embraced it. So what? And so he wins because of that, right?
Exactly. I mean, like when I've coached a few people, I've told them, it's like, I had a client where she was getting ready for a big speech, and she was worried because she didn't have the degrees that the people in the room had. She's one of the only women in the room. So we started to put her opening together, and quite simply, I was like, so why are you here? She goes, oh, I'm the top salesperson. I'm okay. It's like, so you've got, like, what's worried? It's like, well, they're all men. They've got all these degrees. I'm like, okay, well, let's acknowledge that. So quite simply, she stepped out on stage. She said her name. She goes, I traveled all these miles last year. I take care of 6 kids. I'm going through a divorce. I only have a 2-year degree, and I outsold all of you. Let's get started. And that just diffused everything in the room. All her fears, we made that her opening, because she goes, oh, here's what everybody thinks. And I go, yeah, it's like, but they invited you to come and share on stage. So I was like, forget about that. But once again, that's what our world is always teaching us about, once again, how good we're not. And if we forget about all the amazing things that we have done and that we have the ability to do.
Yeah, totally. And this is like, when you see people, we talked about that privately, about the fake it till you make it, that kind of mindset. And I think it stems from this need, or we think that we need to show our perfect self, which does not really exist in real life, of course, because nobody's perfect. And because of that, you create a lot of stress. You bring a lot of stress on yourself, and then you make it harder. And this is like, to some extent, this connects to the money paradox. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, first, I want to ask you another thing.
Sure.
Any comment on this?
I mean, like you said, I've just noticed that when I show imperfections, people like it. So like today, I haven't fully shaved. I'm in a t-shirt, I've got glasses on, but people might see me all the time in a suit, and that's not me all the time. So it's important for us to show the other side of us. And I said that attracts more people. Like one of my most watched videos online was, I walk out of a coffee shop and I show the fact that I haven't shaved in a couple of days, so my face is bearded, that you can see the bald spot in my head. And then I go to my car. I go, okay, everybody, I'm going to show you my car. And I'm sure they're expecting something miraculous. And it's a 15-year-old car. It's rusty. It's faded out. And I go, hey, this is the car that gets me to all the programs that I do. It gets me to the airport. I was like, and it's got over 200,000 miles on it. I was like, but guess what? It's paid for. I was like, we own it. We have no bills. So it was a piece of just showing that, where, as you said, the fake it till you make it people are going to be like, they're in a Ferrari and they've got this house and all that. And that doesn't connect people, because all you do is you look at it, it's like, okay, well, how am I ever going to achieve that? Versus you and I are in our offices right now, and you've got your, to-do list behind you, and I've got a curtain hanging up behind me. This is what it really looks like. And the people who are all showy and flashy, as we said earlier, it's fake. And I always ask people, I was like, hey, it's like, have you truly looked behind the curtain to see who these people truly are? And like, if they're willing to share it, they're genuine, they're transparent, then you know what? Work with those people. I was like, if they're not willing to show that to you, it's like, then that should, be a warning sign to you that, okay, they're not willing to show me truly everything of who they are. Like, you've got a child, then guess what? That should put off some warning signs that maybe I shouldn't trust this person because they're not being truly, transparent.
Yeah, yeah. And I found out that also with my clients, it makes it easier for them. Like most of my videos are almost not edited. There's very little editing. And when I teach them how to create content online, they don't have to match like the highest standard, because my videos are not that. It's about my message, right? What I'm saying. And when they see that, it's like, okay, I can do that, right? So actually it creates an easier connection with people. And I tend to work with people who are like, okay, I'm not perfect, but I can get there, right? If this is working for him, it can work for me as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
it's true.
awesome.
I mean, I have nothing to add to that because like it's just spot on. I mean, I hope the people who are watching this and listening to it not are only listening, but they're going to listen and apply what you just shared there.
Yeah, yeah. And so what you say is, like, of all the things that you do, the work that you do with your clients, what's the most rewarding thing about what you do?
I mean, the piece that gives me the goosebump moments are when a client comes to me and they've expressed what their big dream is. And then I know that we've worked behind the scenes and people don't see that behind the scenes work, but then when I see they accomplish it. So when I first started out, I worked at a college and it was great to work with these students, but then when you see them graduate and get their diploma and realize you had a role in that gets me excited. For groups who I work with now where they've got a business idea and they turn it into business, that excites me. Or just something simple as I get an email or message saying, thank you, going, hey, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish this without reading your book, hearing you speak, you working with me. But the thank yous are what excites me, where I realize, okay, I got to play a role in that person transforming this vision that they didn't think was possible into a reality.
Yeah. And can you share some success stories connected to that?
Success stories. Simple
Something
one was
that stand out to you. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Couple are, there's a gentleman, his name's Dakota Johns. He has Down syndrome. And I met him years ago and he found out that I was a speaker and he talked to his mom. He was 16 at the time. Now he's like 26, 27. And he goes, well, I'm going to be a speaker too. And the doctors have told him all the things that he can't do in his life, that he's not going to be able to go and do this. And he goes, I'm going to be a professional speaker. So we started to work together, put together speeches for him, taught him and his mom how to contact people, build a website. And next thing you know, he's traveling around the United States doing paid speeches as an 18-year-old. Wow. I mean, that's something I can look back on now. Like, he even sent me a little message on Facebook the other day because he saw me on an airplane and I commented about having leg room. And he just said a little thing like, laughing. He's not speaking now because he went off to do some other things. But I mean, that's a proud moment there to recognize, okay, the world was all set up against him. And I remember one of his last speeches I saw him do was he's on a stage and he's got a standing ovation going and his parents in the front row. I mean, to recognize, there's nothing there saying, hey, Frank made this happen. So I don't need that. But seeing him, with smiles and happy tears on his face, accomplishing, this by speaking in front of a room of 800 people and loving it. And then his mom writing back saying, hey, thank you for making his dream come true. I mean, that's what brings me joy and will give me goosebumps.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that. It reminds me of a friend of mine who is in the fitness space. And one of his clients, she had a brain cancer that was removed, but the removal process basically hurt her. And she was a runner before and she couldn't run anymore. She couldn't walk anymore. And all of the doctors she talked to, I don't know how many doctors and experts, and all of them said, you're never going to be able to walk. And she didn't give up, because I think this is a very important thing. Like when people tell you can't do something, question that. Don't be completely delusional, but a little bit. Just have to a little bit of delusional thinking. Sometimes it's actually positive if you can keep it connected to ground. And so she didn't give up, and she talked to my friend who said, well, let's challenge accepted, right?
Yeah.
And so they started working together, and this year she ran a 5K. She didn't walk, she ran a 5K. So it's like, yeah, everybody said I couldn't, but now I can, watch me, right?
Yeah, watch me. I mean, and as you said, when you see those people where they stop listening to those outside voices that quote pour water on their fire, and they start to get around people like yourself or your friend who's a coach, whereas people are feeding that fire, and we're not lying to the people. We're just saying, hey, guess what? anything's possible, but it's not easy. So it's going to take
Yeah.
work. But guess what? You can go and do versus many times we try to surround ourselves with people who are just going to tell us, yes, you can do it. You can do it. That doesn't help us out. Or we have the other people who tell us, well, you can't do it. Neither of those groups are really helpful. You know,
Yeah.
you get either a cheerleader or someone who's putting you down, but you need that honest person in your life to say, okay, here's what's possible. It's not easy, but here's what you have to do to accomplish it. And then when you see it, you know, transformed into reality, as you said, that's the moment where we smile and you're going, hey, you know what? You know, I helped that person. I helped that organization. I was a part of that process. And when you can put other people first and put yourself kind of behind, I mean, that's the moment there, because we're in this world right now where we try to put ourselves in the spotlight and put us first. And that's not what attracts people. They want someone who's going to be there side by side to partner and to help them out.
Absolutely. And this connects totally to the concept of the money paradox. And for people who don't know this, just real quick, basically the idea is that the more you focus on making money, the less likely or harder it is for you to actually make money. That's why it's a paradox. So this, I found that it applies to everything, not just making money. It applies to, you know, even fitness. For example, if you count the calories every time that you train, it's probably going to be harder to sustain that kind of effort, rather than when you actually just enjoy having fun and moving your body, right? So this basically is something that when it comes to success, like you were talking about, you know, how would you say this connects to the success stories that you've seen, or like, yeah, I mean, the challenges that your clients face. Do you see this, like they're maybe focused too much on the end results, and then you maybe help them to focus on what's really important that will make that result a natural consequence? Or
yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways I go by. So like right now I'm wearing the shirt that says I live fresh. And when I tell people the word fresh, I was like, the fresh piece means it's something positive. Like, I was like, if you think of the word fresh, we always think of something positive. And it goes like, I want you to live in this positive mindset on a day-to-day basis. I was like, but more importantly, like what I want them to do is, I was like, I want them to live the dream they hunger for while helping or inspiring others to do the same. So it's like, whatever your big dream is, guess what? It's not just about you. It's going to be about other people around. And I was like, that excitement or that energy, as you said about this whole money paradox, that's what's happening now. Is like you're thinking like, oh, okay, I'm doing this for me, but how is this also going to impact others? And that motivation will drive you to keep, you know, going. So your friend who ran the 5K, I'm like, I remember I ran a marathon, and the reason I ran the marathon, I wasn't thinking about the miles or the work. The ultimate piece was like, well, hey, I'm raising money right now to help my mom who had a stroke, so she had some medical coverage. So all I thought about was my mom, and the thing was, I performed faster and better than previous races. And I'm on stage. What I explain to people is I say, hey, everybody's like, we have to focus. I was like, but I don't want you to necessarily to focus on the work. I was like, you know, but I was like, I want you to focus on the results of the work. So Becky said about this money paradox. I'll get people like, well, Frank, I want to make $50,000. I'm like, well, what does that mean? They go, it's like, it's going to allow me to have freedom. I was like, what does that mean? They go, oh, I'm going to be able to, I just want to go to the movie in the middle of the afternoon and watch movies whenever I want to. I'm like, that's the excitement piece there. It's like, so I want you to focus on that, not necessarily the numbers. Like that number will allow you to do this. And the funny thing is, they either will hit that number or exceed it, because now they're thinking about the results of the work versus actually the work. Because the way our mind is designed to keep us from getting hurt or to get stressed. So as you said about making it fun. So I'm like, okay, why are you raising this money? I want to go on vacation. It's like, oh, so it's not the money, it's the vacation. It's like, what do you want to do on vacation? Well, I want to be in the ocean. I want to drink an adult beverage. I'm like, that's what you have to think about versus the number. Like you said, people who have, like, you know, they have weight loss. And with the weight loss piece, I'm going, it's like, well, what is it? I want to wear this dress. I'm like, then hang the dress up to go and do. But you said counting the calories, counting the numbers and the figures. We have to have that goal, but it's the results of that goal that really drive us. Yeah,
absolutely. And I've had this experience in the past where I had this monetary goal. This, you know, I want to hit 10K. And when that happened, rationally, I was still thinking, okay, next step is 100K. But something within me was like, no, this is the most money I've made in my entire life. I can pay everything with this, which was not the case, of course. But in my mind, something about me was like, yeah, I got everything I need. Everything's covered now. I don't need to work anymore. I don't need to do. So everything that I was doing, all of a sudden I was working like 2 hours a day. And I was spending the rest of my day watching videos on YouTube or playing games or something like that, you know, wasting my life. Yeah. And all of a sudden those 2 hours felt like, I don't know, 18 hours in a factory, you know, hard working and all that. And because of that, I gave up. which is something I never did in my life. And for a few months, I gave up, and I gave up something that was working, and that
Yeah.
hurt me, and I still regret it to some extent. Not really regret it, but like, yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't do it again. It's like, so yeah, when we are focused only on the numbers, our brain doesn't really understand money and prices and numbers. So it's like, it's much better to focus on real experiences, and then keep getting that kind of reward that's not the money, but that's connected to it, and maybe a consequence of it, or the money is a consequence of having fun doing what you do, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, right now, like, we'll be completely transparent. Me and my wife, we have aging parents, and there's things that we want to go and do. Now that requires money. So there is a
sure.
monetary goal that we have there, but I'm not so much focused on that monetary goal as my main focus as going, hey, if I do steps A, B, and C, that will allow that money to come in, and that money will be able to allow us to help our family. So I'm thinking more at the end of the point, it's family. Yes, there's a monetary piece to it, but like, even when I help groups who are doing fundraising, I go, everybody's like, we need to explain the tangible transformations of the money. I was like, that's what gets us going. Like, most people are not money motivated, because we're like, oh, people are motivated by money. It's like, no, it's not money motivation. It's what that money allows them to produce. So for everybody there, it's a little bit something different. So you might say, hey, you know what? I want to be able to provide for my son. Okay. I might say, hey, I want to be able to, if I do this, I can go ahead and take my family on a vacation. For someone else, like, hey, this money here will help change my community. That's the piece we go on. And actually, when we think about that part there, that's the fun. That's what keeps us awake at night, where it's going, oh, wow, I'm going to do this and be able to start this community center, and all these kids are going to be able to play sports, and they're going to be able to go to school. I mean, that's what excites us. And I always will talk to people. It's like, hey, it's like, what excites you? What's the dream? And they'll say what the dollar figure is. Like, no. What's the dream? And then they go deeper into it, and you watch the body changes, the shoulders come up, the smile comes on their face. I'm like, that's what you have to think about. I was like, because that's what will drive you. I was like, if you're only thinking about the dollar and the number, is like, guess what?
Yeah.
I was like, you're going nowhere. I was like, it's the results of the money, the experience.
Yeah. And actually, I wanted to add that if someone's watching right now and they think this is woo-woo, it's not true, actually, there's some scientific research on this. And there is a book where they talk about all the research or the science behind this. And the book is called Drive by Daniel H. Pink.
Mm-hmm.
I love that author. Also on sales, there's some overlapping. There's another book that's called To Sell is Human, same author. But yeah, he talks about it was this research where they followed up with graduates, basically, and when they graduated, they asked them, what's your goal for the future? The ones who said, I want to make $1 million, versus the ones who said, I just want to give back to my community, or whatever it is, that, something greater than themselves, right? Mm-hmm. When they followed up, the ones who said they achieved their goals, either case, like the $1 million or the giving back to the community, the ones who were like the goals that were monetary, when they asked them, are you happy now? They all said no, or most of them said no. Whereas the other ones, they said yes, right? So if you want to be happy, that should be like probably something that you have in a whiteboard like this one, but nothing more than that. You just take a look at that and you're like, yeah, okay, achieved, next. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I can most of the time speak from either personal experience or people who I've worked with one-on-one. But I know for me, when I started my business, my speaking and coaching, I focused strictly on the dollars. So what happened was I saw every individual, every organization as a dollar became transactional versus relational. And the thing was, as I saw each group as a dollar, if you call it my profits, were very low. But then I started focusing, what's the transformation? Who do I want to connect with? Who do I want to make the change for? My business is actually 4 times the growth, because I stopped seeing people as a dollar figure. And the thing was, they actually saw me as value. And the thing was, when I found people who valued me, who would pay me my fee, the people who didn't have my fee, I was actually able to give back to them and help them either pro bono or very low cost. Because I'm like, okay, what I do shouldn't only be for the haves. And when I was thinking dollar figures, all I was thinking about the people who had the money, versus I'm like, that's not why I got into this. It's about transformation. The funny thing was, as I started to give back to other people, no cost, low cost, some of the programs I provided for them turned into revenue generating courses and programs that I'm able to go out and sell. So as you said about that whole paradox, is once I stopped making it strictly about the money, more money came in. So you said it's not woo-woo. There's plenty of, scientific research, out there, but it's the case of, we have to think about, what excites us. And humans are visual. They are, we're experiential. So a dollar on a wall means nothing to us. So the brain's not excited about. I talk to people with my last name being, kitchen, as like being hungry. My daughter's making bread right now. She's not excited about the measuring the stuff out for the bowl or all the pieces there. She's looking at the picture of the bread and thinking about, hey, we're going to go make this and I'm going to give it to mom and dad, the excitement. So she's in there as an 8-year-old working on this right now because she's thinking about the end result of it. And I have no clue how it's going to turn out. It's going to turn out really good or not, but at least she's putting that work in. As you said, instead of waiting for 2 hours a day, there's this excitement there. So we have to think, whoever's listening to this right now, is what's the ultimate excitement? I mean, write that part down. What excites you about this monetary goal? What excites you about whatever you're trying to transform into reality? That's what's going to motivate you and energize you to go. If it's strictly just a number or a word or whatever, that's just not how the human brain and the human body is designed. For some people, yes, it will work short term, but long term, as you said, you've had it happen to you. I've had it happen to me. You lose that energy after a few weeks or a few months.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And it took me a while to understand why. And I kept going back and analyzing everything. And, all that time that I spent just to try and understand why I failed back then, I could have used it to help other people or, to even if it's just your family or, it doesn't have to be like you want to change the world, right? But I think that all the stories that you told me today, it's always something greater than you, right? Something greater than ourselves. And if you take a look also at past civilizations, the pyramids, all those things, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter, but it's always dedicating your efforts to something greater than yourself and sometimes in life, right? And that's where you achieve great things. So you don't have to think, okay, my goal has to be to change the world or to do something, but even if it's just your family, when it's not just about yourself, I think, like, for example, I love to have a team and to work with a team because it motivates me to wake up in the morning and I'm excited to work with someone else rather than be the solo guy. Some people work better on their own. There's nothing bad about that. But in my case, I would say that generally speaking, we need that something external, greater than life, greater than ourselves. It could be your team, it could be your family, it could be you want to change the world. It doesn't matter, but it can't be an egotistical thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you saying too, it's like almost sometimes we make things too big and too grand. Like you said, can't change the world, but I can have an impact on that one person I come in contact. So I've got something simple on my wall. It just goes, hey, have a positive impact on anyone you come in contact with. So whether it means I'm holding the door open for somebody, or yesterday there's an aspiring speaker and I gave him a couple of tips of advice so she can launch her career. That's my piece. And guess what? That actually is changing the world. It's changing the world for that person. And eventually, the more I do that, then I'll actually have a bigger impact. I mean, so for those people who are watching who are coaches, trying to just go out right now and change the world, that's just a big piece. But having a positive impact on the client that you're talking to or someone who calls to ask if they can be your client, even if they don't become your client, but you give them some positive feedback or go, hey, maybe right now is not a good time for coaching, but here's something you can apply. Here's a video to go watch. Here's a great podcast to listen to. I can do that every day. I can have a positive impact on the people I come in contact with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this connects also to my strategy, for example, to help someone grow their business is to learn how to create content eventually. It's part of the strategy. It's not the only thing, of course. But when you do that, again, it's a money paradox because people are thinking about, is this going to get enough views? Is this going to get enough likes? What's the engagement going to be like? What's the retention? All those metrics. I'm not saying they're 100% useless because some of it is important, of course. But the most important thing, and if you take a look at the best YouTubers also, for example, their content is great. It's helping people. It's making people's lives better. It's not about how many views will I get or how much money will I make with this. It's always about giving a lot of value upfront, and then eventually it might not be a direct, for example, like you said, you may help someone today who doesn't have the money to pay you. But if you put that energy out consistently, eventually it'll come back tenfold. It might not be that same person, but yeah.
And as you said, just to share with people with this, I shared this with someone yesterday. He goes, "Oh my God!" But I want to provide value to people in content. Spoke at a group 14 years ago, and then during the pandemic, the people reached out and go, "Hey, would you be able to help us out?" I've not kept in contact with this group over 13 years. But made such an impact when they were an audience member, hey, it's I think I'm in a position now to where I'd like to hire you to bring you in to work with our team. So that was a 13-year investment, if you want to call it, where it's I went in and if I was looking at it strictly as a dollar, I'm like, okay, forget about it. Why keep this page up? Because they found me on the old web page. Why do it? It's like, well, hey, you know what? Let's just provide a great resource, a positive impact on people, and you never know. And as you said, the paradox is the money came in. Another group where I said, okay, well, would you like to have me come in and work with me? No, we're not looking for them. Like, okay, kept them on a mailing list. Once a year, I sent out a little letter saying, hey, here's how you improve your teams and whatever. 3 years later, hey, thank you so much for continuing to share value with us. We think we're ready for you now. So they ended up booking me, but not only did they book me, the next year they booked my friend. So it paid off there because I recommended my friend. So it took care of me, but also, as you said, servant leadership took care of somebody else. And then they also write back to me and I was like, can you make any recommendations? So I'm still helping them out. So when I went into the point, I was like, hey, I just want to help people make a positive impact. The money came in. When I'm like, hey, I just want to make the dollars. Yeah, I got the dollars for that one thing, but now I have to go search for more of those. So I actually made the work harder and it was less satisfying.
Exactly. And by the way, for the people who are watching this, where can they find something about you and maybe learn more about your coaching?
Yeah, so to learn more about my coaching, just what I do, best spot to go to is my website, frankkitchen.com. So it's spelled just like the room. There's only one of me, so just go ahead there. You're going to find links to like my LinkedIn, my YouTube channel. So just go there, follow me on social media. I've got my blog, podcast interviews are all lit up there on the page. So anytime you need, quote, the techniques and the ingredients needed to just cook up those professional dreams you hunger for, that's the spot to go to, frankkitchen.com.
Awesome. We'll put, of course, the links in the, down below. Wherever we post this, it's going to be down below so people can find you. Anything else you want to add to this conversation before we wrap this up?
The big piece is, I'm like, they're listening to this right now, and I just want to share with everybody, we are in a world where we are one click away from transforming that big dream into reality. So if there's a case where you want to go find Marcelo here online and you got a question for him and you're listening to the podcast, click on the link because it says, hey, ask me for questions. You want to connect with me, somebody you admire and look up to. The case is whatever the big dream is, personally, professionally, don't wait for it to happen. Start it today. I mean, that's the big paradox there too, is we're like, well, we're going to wait till it happens. And like, no, that's passive. You got to be active with whatever it is. So don't wish an idea turns out. That's what wait means. Work on it today. So once you finish listening or watching this podcast, whatever you heard here, start applying it right now. Don't wait for things to happen.
Love that. Thank you very much. And I really love this message and totally agree with that. And it's been a great pleasure having you on board with this. Hopefully we'll repeat again one day.
Oh, definitely.
And yeah, I think I'm going to cut it here. And everybody, if you need anything from Frank, you'll find the links down below.
All right. Thanks so much.